Spyro 4 is a game that I have been talking about for years, whether it's purely speculation, theory crafting, story building, or even potential investigative leaks. But one of the things that I'm so excited about is the fact that there is an endless amount of possibilities that the game could go. But in those endless possibilities, there are also certain things that may not be a possibility that I want to explore. What I mean is, there are some ideas that were either established in previous games or have been community fan ideas that I just don't think would resonate well in a new entry to Spyro, like the Sparks levels. Whenever I'm doing a playthrough of Spyro 3 Year of the Dragon, I would be enjoying myself, having a great old time, get to the end of the game, and right when I'm about to enter the super bonus round, I'm reminded that I have to go back and do all the Sparks levels. And I would immediately groan. I understand that this top-down tank shooter is a genre that some people really enjoy. I'm just not one of those people. One of the things that is commonly known about Insomniac's thoughts about Spyro was that by the end of his developmental cycle, they felt that they reached the climax of what they could do with him gameplay-wise. This is part of the reason why so many guest characters were introduced in Spyro 3, to add a completely new moveset and freshen up the overall game's gameplay. And while most of the side characters are a lot of fun, the Sparks levels is something that I wish would just stay in the past. Now, if you know me, if I give a critique, I don't give one without also suggesting some kind of a fix, because I like to see things improve and not just hate on them for really no reason other than I don't like them. While the Sparks levels used to make me groan verbally, that doesn't mean the whole concept has to be thrown out. An alternative could be something that is different, but not a completely different genre. So maybe Spyro needs to get access through a door or something, and there's only one character that can fit through it, and it's Sparks. So we could then go into a third-person adventure where it's more of a puzzle-based platformer, where Sparks is figuring out how to unlock the door so that Spyro can get access. Or maybe Sparks gets involved with other dragonflies and decides to join some kind of dragonfly race, which could be a high-speed take on some of the original flight levels, but maybe done in the style of something more high-speed, like, I don't know, Star Wars pod racing? Again, doing something different from the core gameplay of Spyro, but not so different that it feels like a completely different genre. Now, that's one thing so far in this video. I got plenty more to talk about, and here are the 5 things that I don't want to see in Spyro 4. The next thing I don't want to see is flight-only levels. Now, hear my words carefully. Flight-only levels. Let me explain. A staple to the Spyro franchise, especially in the original trilogy, are flight levels, where Spyro has to basically fly through an obstacle course trying to pass through or destroy certain things along the way. The reason this was made in the first place was because Spyro's flight system back in the day on the PS1 was revolutionary, especially since it was designed by someone who originally came from NASA. But nowadays, the flight system feels, sadly, kind of normal. It still feels great in terms of quality, don't get me wrong, but it's not really a gigantic selling point like it was before. Having one jammed into every single homeworld might not be as much of a joy as it was in the past. But what if we could dial those challenges up a notch or two? What if Combat was also involved, where Spyro has obstacles to fly through like in the original games, but then has to drop down and defeat a bunch of enemies in a specific amount of time, or even a boss. Maybe there are egg thieves running around that are sprinkled through the challenges that are not necessarily required for you to have to grab, but if you hit them, your time freezes to make your final time better. Special fun secrets could also be discovered by the player to help shorten their end time even more. You could earn prizes for completing certain times, like gems, concept art, and even a skin. There's a feature that I'm going to mention later on in this video that could tie into this, so stay tuned for that. But in my opinion, there's a lot of ways these challenges could be spiced up, and I think just sticking to only flight is just a little too safe. The next thing I don't want to see that, admittedly, a lot of fans have been asking, and I don't really think it would be great, but that is gigantic levels. Now, I need to make it clear to y'all what I mean by this, because already I know the comment section is full of people yelling at me for saying this. When we entered the PlayStation 2 era, one of the premier games in the platforming category especially was Jak and Daxter. Now, I love me some Jak and Daxter, and one of the cool features that this game had was actually fairly small amount of loading screens. Instead of going to portal like many other classic platformers to get the different levels, you would actually just run to that location or fast travel if you've already been there. Many platformers in the PS2 era took note of this and used it a lot, like Crash Twinsanity or even Spyro A Hero's Tale. But I'm here to say, I really don't want that. One of the things about Spyro is that its level themes vary greatly. On one level, you're on a snowy mountaintops helping a pair of Canadian brothers fix their gondola. On the next level, you're talking with fireflies who can only speak haiku in a swamp. And then you're talking with pandas on a bamboo fortress. The point is, these worlds are super creative and can be jam-packed full of ideas. But when you make these non-loading screen big worlds, you're kind of stuck with the same generalized theme throughout that world. You can't jump all over the place in terms of themes like in the original games. It wouldn't make sense if you went from a frozen wasteland to a tropical beach, for example, within the same walkway. However, there is something that can be done, and it's something that I have in my Spyro 4 pitch. Much bigger homeworlds. Instead of thinking Jak and Daxter, let's think a little more in line kind of with Sonic Frontiers. Now, I don't mean follow it to a T in terms of scale, because the base worlds in Sonic Frontiers are far too big, and the actual levels are far too small. But picture a much larger homeworld in comparison to the original games, with levels that are just a little bit bigger in comparison to the originals as well. And again, while the levels in Spyro 4 could be ultimately bigger in scale in comparison to the originals, they don't have to be gigantic. To add on to this idea, and for people to be amazed at its scale, as each level is completed, it can open up more of the base homeworld, allowing for more exploration and discovering more that's within it. In fact, I would suggest that the last thing that you 100% is the homeworld that you enter in. Examples could include hazards like poisonous water being cleaned so that Spyro can explore what's in a lake, or maybe bridges repaired so he can access a secret floating island. I have a bunch more of ideas in regards to this, but you'll have to wait for my Spyro 4 full breakdown pitch video. So subscribe and stay tuned for that. The next thing that I don't want to see come back in the same way that he's being used is money bags. Again, don't freak out, go to the comment sections and scream at me, let me explain. As a kid, Moneybags was the character that I hated the most. Yes, he was essentially the troll of the bridge that limited your progress if you didn't have enough gems to get past him. And yes, it's a great character to meme about, joke about, and laugh about. But most Spyro fans, nowadays especially, are completionists by heart. They want to scan and collect every single gem as possible. So when it comes to Moneybags charging the player to get past him, it's not really a challenge anymore. Now, of course, you could just crank up the gem fees and force players to basically 100% the game to basically get past him, but then it would be much more annoying to the more casual and younger crowds. But Moneybags has become so iconic to the Spyro fanbase, it would be such a shame to have him and his main function removed. So, how do we keep Moneybags, keep a resemblance of what he has done in the past, but not make him some arbitrary progress block that really doesn't affect Spyro fans today? Well, there was one thing that Moneybags did do specifically in Spyro 2, and that didn't actually feel like a complete and total roadblock. It was, but it didn't feel like it necessarily. And that was teaching Spyro different skills. Whether it was swimming, head bashing, or climbing, Moneybags extorted and taught it to our purple lad. So what if Moneybags gets his hands on a book called Secrets to Dragons, where he can teach Spyro different moves and tricks in the homeworlds for a small fee? Perhaps some upgrades that include sustained fire breath, maybe a significant speed boost underwater, or maybe give Sparks even more health. These upgrades would be strictly optional and not a requirement, but would make the experience easier as the game's difficulty starts to ramp up. These upgrades could also be used in the previously mentioned improved flight levels to help get even better times, which again could grant better rewards. And last, but certainly not least, the last thing that I don't want to see is minor backtracking. Now, let me stress here, minor backtracking. One of the really fun things of Spyro 1 is that you can 100% the game in one shot, meaning you only need to visit each level once and you can 100% the game without ever having to revisit a single level. Now, Spyro 2 introduced backtracking. This meant that in order to 100% the level, you would have to unlock something from later in the game and then come back later to finish it. Now, I can understand what Insomniac was going for. The downside to Spyro 1 is that if you're ripping through the game in the 100% run, you only experience the level once and you never need to go back. And some of the worlds in Spyro 1 are genuinely magical and great to visit. And while Spyro 2 and even 3 also have many magical worlds, the problem with its backtracking is that it feels very, very, very minor. What I mean is, you can get 98% of the level done, but in order to get that last 2%, you have to come back later. Take Glimmer, for example. You can get almost completely done on your first run through, but because you can't climb yet, you don't have access to a minigame that lasts literally less than 30 seconds to get an orb and for a few gems. This kinda deflates the whole revisiting the area again because, well, you can get it done in about 2 minutes tops. However, what if we gave a better reason to revisit these worlds? What if when a world is complete, it will tell you that you have 100% of the items that are currently accessible, but due to an event that happens later in the game, it triggers portions of previous levels to open up that were previously blocked off. And then your guidebook will update you, telling you that something happened in the world and you should go visit it, and updating your progress. This could be anything from a completely new area that opens up, the original level but completely rearranged, new missions, and more. It wouldn't feel like such a small portion of the level is blocked behind things anymore. It would just feel like an expansion on a level that you finished with a new twist on it. But what if you really are a very, very casual player and you just want to go back and go through the level again and replay it? If the level gets changed due to a later event, how could someone access that first initial playthrough experience? Maybe that was just better than the second one, or maybe the second one is better than the first. Well, I do have a solution to that problem, along with a solution to yet another problem. I sometimes want to go back and play through a level again that I've already completed, but the collectibles, like dragons, gems, etc., have already been grabbed, and in order to recollect everything in the level, I would have to start the game all over again with a brand new fresh save. But what if there was a feature that after you 100% a level on both events, you can use something called Dragon Time to rewind the level back to the way it was when you first entered it, allowing you to find all the gems again, all the collectibles, do all the mini games, do all the missions, and find all the secrets. Of course, all the gems and collectibles wouldn't count and wouldn't add to your total gem collection count, but it would simply be for fun. Honestly, it was really hard for me to come up with some ideas for this video because there are so many amazing potential avenues that Spyro 4 can take, and I don't want to stifle any creativity. So finding ideas that I didn't like was a little hard, but I am literally a gigantic barrel of ideas for Crash and Spyro, and if you want to make sure you're up to date on all of them, I would encourage you to subscribe. Also, if you need some more evidence of Spyro 4's existence in the first place, you can check out this video right here. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Bye-bye!